The noon sun burned over the dry plains, baking the dust until it shimmered like liquid gold. Miles of open land stretched between the mountains and the horizon, broken only by sagebrush and the lonely fences of Clay Donovan's ranch. Clay had spent most of his life carving a living from this unforgiving earth. Cattle, sweat and silence were his only company since the war. He was a man of habit, of hard work, and little faith left in kindness. Out here, a man learned that mercy was often paid back with bullets. That morning, the wind carried something strange. Not a storm, not the scent of rain, but the rhythm of hooves, slow and heavy, like the earth itself walking. Clay set down his bucket by the old water trough, wiping the sweat from his neck, and squinted across the ridge. The sun blinded him for a heartbeat before the shape came into view. A lone rider, tall, proud, and unlike any he'd seen before. As the horse drew nearer, he realized it wasn't a man. It was a woman, and not just any woman. She sat her horse like a warrior born from stone, her frame towering, her eyes dark and sharp as obsidian. She wore the garments of the Apache, leather fringed with beads that shimmered in the light, her long hair tied back, and her bow slung across her back. Her horse was dusted in sweat, its breath heavy, and her face looked carved by exhaustion. Clay's hand drifted to the rifle leaning against the post, but something in her expression froze him. It wasn't hostility. It was hunger, thirst, and pride that refused to beg. The horse stopped by the trough. She looked down at him with a voice deep yet soft, carrying the accent of the desert wind. "Water," she said. Just one word, but it hung heavy in the silence between them. Clay hesitated. 1,000 stories had been told about Apaches raiding ranches, stealing cattle, burning homes, but the woman before him didn't look like a raider. She looked like someone who'd been chased by death itself. He reached for the tin cup beside the well, filled it, and held it out. "Here," he said quietly. "Ain't no harm in water." For a long moment she didn't move. Her eyes studied his, searching for deceit, and then she slid off her horse. She was tall, easily a head taller than Clay, her muscles sculpted from years of surviving the wild. When she took the cup, her hand brushed his, and he felt the raw strength beneath her skin. She lifted the cup to her lips, drinking deeply, and the sound of the water was the only thing alive in that silent ranch yard. When she finished, she lowered the cup slowly and met his gaze again. "You are not afraid," she said, almost surprised. Clay shrugged. "You look thirsty, not dangerous." A faint smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Most white men do not see the difference. He poured another cup, this time holding it under the spout as she cupped her hands and drank straight from it. Her horse leaned in beside her, and Clay, with quiet care, poured water into his own hat and offered it to the animal. The gesture made her eyes soften. After a moment, she spoke again. "My name is Nayehe. I come from the San Carlos Mountains. The bluecoats burned our village. My people are scattered." She glanced toward the hills, her voice trembling between sorrow and fire. "I ride to find them." Clay leaned against the well post, watching her carefully. "You got far to go?" "Farther than one woman can ride without water," she said. He nodded, glancing toward the barn. "You can rest your horse there. There's feed inside, and I can spare some jerky if you don't mind ranch food." Nayehe's brows furrowed. "You would feed an Apache?" He smirked faintly. "I'd feed a hungry soul. Don't much care what name they wear." Something in that answer struck her, a rare thing in a world that had taught her to expect hatred. She dismounted fully, leading her horse toward the barn. Inside, the air was cool and filled with the scent of hay. She brushed down her horse with steady hands, her movements practiced and precise. "You live alone?" she asked suddenly. Clay nodded. "Since the war ended. My wife passed 2 winters ago. Ain't much left but me and this land." She looked around the barn, eyes scanning the tools. The saddles, the order of things. "A lonely life?" "Better lonely than dead," Clay replied, half a grin, half truth. She chuckled softly, a sound that felt like thunder softened by rain. "You speak like a warrior who has seen too much." He met her gaze again. "Maybe I have. Maybe you have too." As the sun began to sink, painting the world in gold, she sat by the well again, her eyes distant. Clay brought her bread and dried meat, placing it near her without a word. She accepted, eating slowly. After a while, she said quietly, "You gave water to an enemy. The old ones say such kindness is never forgotten." He smiled faintly. "Don't go making me a legend, ma'am. Just seemed the right thing to do." She looked toward the horizon. where the mountains turned purple in the fading light. The right thing, she murmured. The Great Spirit remembers such things. When dawn broke, she was gone, the only sign of her. Passing was the tracks in the dirt and the faint echo of hooves, fading toward the hills. Clay watched the horizon, wondering if he'd ever see her again. But by noon, the wind changed. The same dry breeze now carried a new sound, the thunder of many hooves, hundreds of them. He stepped out of his cabin and froze. From the ridge, the earth seemed to move. Riders, Apache warriors, row upon row, poured over the hill like a living storm. 300 strong, armed and painted for war, and at their head rode Nayehe. Clay's heart pounded as he reached for his rifle, but she raised her hand, signaling the riders to stop. The dust settled and her voice carried across the field, powerful, commanding. The man who gave water to a daughter of the Apache shall not be harmed, she called. He is under my protection. The warriors halted, murmuring among themselves. One old warrior, his face marked with ash and years of battle, rode forward and pointed his spear toward Clay. This man lives on Apache land. Why should we not take back what was stolen? Nayehe's gaze did not waver, because he gave life when the desert gave none. The old warrior's tone was sharp. Then let him prove his heart. He will ride with us tonight to the canyon. There we decide if he is friend or foe. Clay's voice was calm but heavy. I'm no soldier anymore. Nayehe's eyes softened. Once you fight for life, you never stop being one. By nightfall, Clay found himself riding beside her again, under the silver light of the moon. Below them lay the Red Canyon, where soldiers had camped, the same soldiers who had burned Nayehe's village and taken her people captive. He saw their fires, heard their laughter, and his jaw tightened. You'll die charging them head on, he warned. Let me help you do this right. Nayehe studied him a long moment. Then speak, rancher. Tonight the desert listens. Clay showed them how to flank, to strike from the shadows instead of the open. When the wind turned, they attacked. Arrows whistled through the night. Rifles cracked. The camp erupted in chaos. Clay fought only to protect, his rifle true, his heart steady. By dawn it was over, the prisoners freed, the soldiers scattered, and the warriors chanting for their dead. Nayehe approached Clay through the smoke, her eyes reflecting the first light of day. You saved many tonight. He shook his head. We saved each other. She looked to the horizon. My people will go north, but they will remember your name, the rancher who gave water to an enemy. Clay smiled faintly. Guess I'll have some explaining to do when they find out. Her voice softened. You owe no one an explanation. The desert remembers kindness. With that, she turned her horse toward the sunrise. Before she rode off, she looked back one last time. Perhaps one day when rivers run full again, we'll meet. Then she was gone, a shadow melting into the morning light. From that day on, no Apache ever touched Clay Donovan's land. The fences stood unbroken, the cattle grazed undisturbed, and travelers swore that sometimes at dusk, they saw a tall figure on horseback watching from the hills, guarding the man who once offered her water. Clay never told the story, but every time he passed the well, he'd look down at the rippling water and whisper, Guess the desert remembers. If this story moved your heart, if you believe kindness can still change the world, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. Join us for more emotional Wild West stories of courage, compassion, and redemption. Every like, share, and comment helps us bring these cinematic tales to life and keep the spirit of storytelling alive.